Meanwhile, President-elect Trump has also demanded the release of hostages taken during last year's Hamas-led October 7th attacks on Israel. He threatened there would be, quote, hell to pay if they are not released before his inauguration in January. Around 100 hostages are still being held in Gaza, and at least a third are believed to have died. This comes as the fighting in the region rages on. Yesterday, Israel launched its largest wave of airstrikes across Lebanon since agreeing to a ceasefire with Hezbollah last week. At least 11 people were killed. Israel's military said it struck Hezbollah targets after the group launched 2 projectiles towards Israeli-held territory. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News contributor Robert Berger. Robert, so let's talk about what's happening right now along Israel's northern border today and this fragile ceasefire, if it's holding.
Well, the ceasefire is being tested. And as you mentioned, we've seen these exchanges of fire, each side blaming the other for various violations. And that led late yesterday, to Hezbollah firing a couple of projectiles into Israel for the first time since the ceasefire. And then Israel said they'd crossed a red line, Hezbollah did, and they launched airstrikes on dozens of targets. And today, Israel talking tough, saying that if Hezbollah continues cross-border attacks, that Israel will not only attack Hezbollah, but also the Lebanese state. And that would, of course, would be a major escalation. That's something that Israel refrained from doing throughout the war. But Israel said there is going to be zero tolerance for any Hezbollah violations.
So let's talk about the reaction to President-elect Trump's stern rhetoric on the release of the hostages in Gaza. What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, Israelis like that tough talk. Basically, President-elect Trump threatening Hamas that if they don't release the hostages, they're going to pay a heavy price. So I think that plays well in Israel. The question is, what kind of pressure can President-elect Trump or the new Trump administration put on Hamas, which is basically a militant group that has no diplomatic ties with the U.S. I think the hope here is that the Trump administration, the new Trump administration, would put pressure on the mediators like Egypt, but especially Qatar, which does have some influence with Hamas, that they would put some pressure on Hamas to be more flexible in making a deal. I would just say, though, that it could work both ways. There could be further pressure on Israel as well to be more flexible in negotiations.
This morning, Robert, Deborah Patta reported on CBS Mornings that there is a ceasefire deal being negotiated in Egypt. Where do things stand on that? Is that a possibility?
We do know that there are negotiations going on in Egypt behind the scenes. Hamas delegation has been there negotiating with Egyptian mediators, and basically they're trying to revive an old proposal, the Egyptians are, which is something like a 6-week ceasefire in exchange for some hostages and Palestinian prisoners. The hope would be that then they could build on that and get a permanent ceasefire and the release of all the hostages. But, you know, that proposal has been on the table really for a long time, most of this year, and it's been deadlocked. So, but still, with the Lebanon ceasefire and a new administration coming in, the hope is that maybe conditions are ripening for a deal.
All right, Robert Berger reporting for us this morning. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.